Hello everyone. So tonight I want to talk about the waiting game, and this applies whether you're in a relationship, whether you're dating, or in many parts of our life. So how many of you have ever been waiting on someone to get back to you? Maybe on a text message, maybe for setting up the next date, maybe for letting them know or letting you know how they feel, especially if you've done something like juicy and vulnerable, like shared your feelings or shared something that you really want. A lot of times we're waiting, we're just kind of walking on eggshells or holding our breath, or maybe even waiting for the other shoe to drop if we have this nervous feeling in the pit of our stomach. I even have clients who have many men interested in them, and they're waiting to see, like, which one is it going to be? Which one do I have the greatest connection with? So I myself understand really deeply this waiting game because I experienced it a lot when I was dating before I found my now husband, and I experienced a lot even in other parts of my life, waiting to see how something's going to come together for a podcast episode or for my book or for, initiative that I'm creating. So we have lots of times in our life where we feel like we're just waiting, and it can drive us bonkers. So the worst part of the waiting game for me is just the uncertainty. I'd love to know what's the worst part of the waiting game for you. If you're waiting to hear back from a potential love interest, or if you're waiting at a date and you're wondering, is the person going to show up? Like, what's the worst part of that for you? Do you start doubting yourself? Do you start, doubting your future and the future that you're creating, for yourself or with a partner? Or maybe you start feeling upset and frustrated and start blaming the other person. I find that when we have uncertainty, we oftentimes go to our least favorable parts of our personality, the part that isn't so sweet, or the part that's passive aggressive, or the part that gets a little bit angry and upset. But, waiting is part of life. Think about waiting, whether it was waiting for your Christmas or your Hanukkah gifts, or whether it was waiting for your first car when you were 15 and you wanted to learn how to drive, or when you bought your first car when maybe you were in your 20s or even later. Or what about getting into college, waiting to see, what college would I get accepted into? Would I get my first pick? And would there be any financial aid? There are so many times in life that we spend waiting for really yummy things, really delicious things, be it Christmas or college entry or our first car, or even for some people, turning 21 and being able to go to the bars. Like, there are all these milestones in life and all these milestones in relationship. And then sometimes the waiting game is less pleasant. I'm going through a health thing right now, and so waiting to get test results back and waiting to find out what's really going on can be totally scary, but it's also the place of absolute possibility. So when we have total certainty about outcomes, when we're always, predicting the future or forcing our agenda, there's not a lot of room for divine intervention, and there's not a lot of room for delight and surprise. And a lot of times, especially in dating, we want to predict the future. We want to know it's going to happen, and we don't want to have to wait. We don't have to wait to decide, who we fall in love with or who sparks our interest the most. We don't have to wait for our partner. We don't have to wait for, the person being a few minutes late for the date. But I strongly believe that when we're not, getting what we want, or when we feel stuck in this waiting game, it's because there's something bigger and better at the moment for us to be putting our love and our attention on. So if you're waiting for someone to text you back, maybe there's something else that you could be doing to, tend your own garden or take care of yourself or feel really delicious and yummy. If you're waiting for someone to show up, have you looked around at your surroundings? Have you gotten into your five senses? Have you, struck up a conversation with the waiter or the bartender, or text someone that you've been thinking about that you haven't reached out to in a long time? Like, there's so much we can do during the waiting game, and it's hard sometimes just to get over that hump from being internally focused on ourselves and getting our agenda to being more externally focused on what's going on in our environment, connecting with another person, or just what's possible for us to enjoy this waiting game while it's happening. And I know for certain that it's hard to keep in our bodies. It's really more likely that when we're in the waiting game, we're stuck in our head, rereading his texts or re-listening to voicemails or analyzing what we did or didn't say, or what could have happened, what could we have done to make this happen. But there's a difference between blaming ourselves and taking responsibility. So when something is going not what you expected, or when there's a little bit of a delay, or you're playing this waiting game, I'm curious, what's your tendency? Do you tend to blame yourself and think, oh my gosh, I messed up? Or do you tend to blame someone else and think, well, why aren't they here yet? Or what's happening? Or he should have gotten back to me by now. Or maybe you tend to not blame yourself or other, you just stay in the mystery and you stay connected to your body and to the flow of the moment and to, again, what the best and highest use of your energy at the time would be, which might be completely different than what you've been putting your energy on. And one of the best ways to do that is to stay connected to your heart and to your body so that you're not over analyzing. And most of the women I work with are super smart, professional, successful. They know how to get stuff done, and that's great. And sometimes it doesn't always work in the other parts of our life where we feel more vulnerable, be it our health, be it our relationships, and all these other things that involve so many other factors. So taking really good care of yourself during the waiting game, staying connected to your body instead of stuck in your mind, recognizing that there is probably a more divine use of your energy and attention at the time. And then the last one is faith and trust. Can you keep the faith and trust, not necessarily in a specific outcome, because we can't always predict that future, but in the identity that you're creating? I always share with my clients, if you're deeply committed to being a woman of love, you are going to be in a loving relationship. If you're not that committed, if you're like, maybe something will change, maybe it won't, or like, yeah, I hope my love life gets better, I hope I start attracting a better guy, like, that's not going to be that helpful compared to saying, I'm totally a woman of love. I'm committed to being a woman of love, and I'm absolutely going to create love wherever I go by sharing my heart, expressing my needs and my desires, and by offering the gift of my devotion with how I'm placing my attention and my energy in the moment. That feels totally different than just passively waiting. So if you find yourself stuck in the cycle of in the waiting game, just ask yourself, where am I holding back in my life? Where am I giving up my power and just hoping that something changes? So if you've never actually done something to change your patterns of attraction, or to do something differently in your love life, or to understand why you've created the relationship patterns that you have, it's super important that you don't just stay stuck in your own waiting game of just wanting, God to drop your partner down on your doorstep. Now, when you have the right mindset and beliefs and skill set and connection to your heart, mind, and body, everything happens so much faster. I mean, I have clients that meet a great guy within weeks. One of my newer clients from October has met a great guy and has a new boyfriend just 6 weeks into our work together. And he's everything that she's been waiting for and wanting for, and has her feeling more open and more connected to her heart than she has in over 2 decades. So that's fantastic. That's amazing. And she's getting results like that and getting changes like that in her love life because she's deeply committed to herself and taking action, so she's not staying paralyzed and staying stuck in the waiting game. So at some point we do surrender and we open and we trust, but we do so in conjunction with taking action and in conjunction with taking responsibility and making change. So I am very delighted to help people move through the waiting game and into more of possibility and commitment and certainty in themselves more than just in a particular outcome. And ironically, when we do that, we get the better outcomes. So I would love to chat with you if you'd like a little bit more of that in your dating life or your love life. I will put the link in the comments, but it's violetlang.com/talk. And let's get out of the waiting game because we only have a few weeks left of this year, and then it's going to be 2019, and another year can go by just like that. And I want you to enjoy the process and feel really connected and yummy and deeply devoted to your body and to love throughout this time. So thank you, Maria. Thank you, everyone, for joining, and I will see you soon. Mwah. Bye.